Hello, inmates, and welcome back to the cellblock Scorch. This is Peixe, and this is week 32. I have once again planned poorly, surprise, surprise, and so I am recording this from my boss's place. That sounded more mysterious than I wanted to. If we're being mysterious, shall I tell you a secret about Bones' bedroom? There are, gasp, anime posters on the walls in here. Okay, so this week I won for a prompt that was given by Cricket, and it was a very detailed prompt. The prompt says, write me a pantheon. You must involve at least 1 major god by appearance, 2 major gods by mention, 2 minor gods and or 2 mortals by appearance, or 1 of each that's cool. Go crazy. I don't care if it's fandom based or of your own invention. Just write me godly shenanigans. Write me a pantheon. Okay, and I believe that, well, I know that my piece that I'm about to read to you is fan fiction. I believe that the other Embers were also fan fiction. So this is your warning that this whole Scorch is about to be a fan fiction. If you dislike fan fiction, you're free. Well, I'll say 2 things. Number 1, you're free to leave. And number 2, you're a coward. All right, so this piece is called Divine Drabbles, Snippets of the God Life. It is a fairly low-effort fanfiction of My Hero Academia. So without further ado, let's go. The funny thing about mythology, stories, religion, is that they change depending on where you are and who you talk to. Talk to a Christian, and they'll tell you there is one God, often manifesting in 3 forms. Talk to a Hindu, and they'll tell you that there are a great many gods, more than you can hear about in a single evening. Talk to someone from a certain region of the universe, and they will tell you that there is one major god, Kirito, who leads a pantheon of minor gods. Talk to the Greeks, and they will tell you about a big 3 leading a pantheon of 12, surrounded by minor deities. Their big 3 reminds me of another pantheon, worlds away, in a land called Boku no Kami Pantheon. Allow me to make the introductions before we get into the story. They have a big 3, but not brothers, and not rulers of the sky, ocean, and underworld. The leader of their pantheon is Izuku, god of power and hope. Next we have Katsuki and Shoto, who share dominion over fire, splitting its aspects between themselves. Katsuki is additionally god of war, while Shoto presides over ice. There we have the big 3. Now, in Greek myth, there are 2 gods in addition to the 12, making 14. In Boku no Kami Pantheon, we have the big 3 separated from a council of 7, coming to 10 major deities. Each major deity has a secondary god bound to them, so we have 20 gods in addition to the many scattered minor deities and higher gods of the past. The gods, called to council, arrive at their own pace. Tenya, god of speed and justice, showed up almost immediately, then sped right back out, embarrassed at breaking protocol by showing up first, before the 3 kings of the royal triumvirate. Izuku, first ruler and god of power and hope, sensed Tenya and forced himself to abandon his notes and arrive in the throne room. Katsuki, second ruler and god of fire and war, was already waiting outside the Triad's door. Do you know where Shoto is, Kachan? Why should I, Deku? Icy hot bastard calls the meeting and can't be bothered to show up. At that moment, Shoto, third ruler and god of ice and fire, came down the hallway. He nodded to them, and together they proceeded through the door, settling on their thrones. Immediately, Tenya burst through the opposite door and took his seat. Before the door could shut, Momo, Shoto's wife and goddess of wisdom and creation, and Ochaku, Izuku's wife and goddess of gravity and self-reliance, swept in and took their places in the circle. Katsuki's wife had always chosen to remain a minor goddess outside of the pantheon. Next to arrive was Fumikage, god of night and shadow. Normally punctual, he was a little later when they called meetings past sunset during his wild phase. Toru, goddess of color and secrecy, followed him in. Once they'd taken their seats in the circle, nearly 10 minutes passed before the last two burst through the door, out-of-breath messes. Denki, god of lightning and foolery, and Aijiro, god of strength and shields. None of the assembled gods bothered to remark on their tardiness. It was far too common an occurrence. Izuku spoke first. We are gathered today in a solemn council to hear from Shoto, third ruler of the royal triumvirate of the gods, a god of fire and ice, a strong husband. Enough! We all know his titles, Deku. Icy hot, why are we here? Shoto, unperturbed by Katsuki's rough mannerisms, raised his eyes to the group. I have a proposal. There are 10 of us, and many thousands of people in our domain. We manage well enough, but I wonder if the burden could be lightened. There are, after all, plentiful minor gods around. I propose each of us chooses one fellow deity to serve under us. They would do our bidding, and in turn we could share our glory and patronage. I open the floor to the throne. Izuku nodded slowly. I'm sure Toshinori and the lords of the past would agree. I support the motion. Everyone turned to Katsuki. Said ruler lounged in his chair, bored, considering. He glanced at the circle and Aijiro piped up eagerly. I think it's a great idea. We should do it. Katsuki scowled at him, but he answered, The throne of 3 seals the proposal in acceptance. Dissidents? In turn, every member of the circle shook their heads, supporting the motion. Shoto nodded. Shall we call the 10 strongest of the minor gods? Izuku, I assume you're aware who they are? Izuku pulled out a stack of papers, shuffled through it, and sifted out a particular scroll. The triumvirate summons these 10 gods. Silence fell, and he imbued his voice with power. Meizo, god of senses and shape-shifting. Meizo materialized in the middle of the room and knelt on one knee. Hanta, god of tools and utility. Hanta appeared, looked around confused, then copied Meizo. Kyoka, goddess of music and detection. Kyoka frowned when she arrived, spinning to take in the room before she too knelt. Mina, goddess of acid and beauty. Mina grinned at Denki and curtsied with an eye roll before kneeling. Tsuyu, goddess of water and water creatures. Tsuyu remained in her customary crouch, blinking at the others, head tilted inquisitively to the side. Koji, god of silence and land creatures. Koji shuffled nervously before taking his cue from the others and kneeling. Yuga, god of light and fancy. Yuga arrived in a blinding glow, then draped himself artfully on a bench he conjured. Mashirao, god of climbing and flexibility. Mashirao folded his tail carefully over his shoulder and knelt. Rikido, god of sweets and muscles. Rikido knelt beside Koji. Hitoshi, god of hypnotism and control. Hitoshi leaned against the pillar to brood. Shoto surveyed the assembled gods. Each minor god may select a patron from among our council and pledge their service. Yuga, ever seeking attention, exclaimed almost immediately, I pick Izuku. Katsuki scowled at him. Your patron must also select you. Izuku turned to him. I don't see a problem with it, Kachan. I know he wants the glory, but he'll be no worse at handling my work than anyone else. Yuga beamed and took his place in a seat that appeared in front of and below Izuku's. Mina jumped up. I want to be Denki's second. Denki smiled at her, but he shook his head, saying, Nothing against you, but I'd like to have my wife fill that position. Kyoko rolled her eyes, but ascended her seat. Mina laughed. My bad, I forgot. Toru spoke up. May I have my husband as well? Mashirao smiled at her and settled in his seat. Hanta went to Aijiro, Mina to Katsuki, and Tsuyu to Ochako. Tenya chose Rikudo for the appeal of speed with strength. Fumikage took Hitoshi for their quiet natures. Shoto asked for Meizo. Koji went last, silently trooping over to Momo. Annabelle sighed. Being high priestess to one of the triumvirate was hard. She didn't have it too badly with Shoto. She'd heard Katsuki was far more demanding. Still, this latest task. The Council of the Gods had decided there were too many important things that weren't presided over by a divine entity. They wanted the humans to assign all 10 of them, in addition to the 10 minor gods they kept. In reviewing the submissions from Shoto's worshippers, she'd found ridiculous ideas, variations on his current domain, and a few good suggestions with common themes. One of her favorites was marriage and family, as Shoto's relationship with his wife Momo was legendary. Annabelle has been privileged to meet them in person, and she knew that Shoto would fit the position. The issue was, there was already Izuku, god of marriage, as of 3 days ago, Toshinori, god of parenting ever since giving up his past title, and Ochako, goddess of family, as of 2 days ago. She could give love to Shoto, but then he'd have to interact with the god of lust, and no one should have to interact with Minoru on a regular basis. She shook her head. Nothing in that area would work. Another common theme appeared to be further elemental power, either earth or air, but Sorahiko was the god of wind, and Ken was god of earth. Those wouldn't do either. The majority of the other pertinent requests referred to his personality. Serenity, rebellion, choice. Serenity and rebellion contrasted quite a bit, but choice, that could work. It was important enough to be given to one of the 3 rulers, and no one held it yet. She pondered and reviewed for another few hours, then nodded and moved to the portal, stepping through its curtain to sweep aside another and arrive in the priest's chamber, located just without the Palace of the Gods. Walking over to formally write her suggested duties, she encountered Katsuki's high priest. "Jace, how are you?" He shot her a dismissive glance, disappointed that there's already a god of death. "Of course you are. What did you pick instead?" "Victory. You?" "Makes sense. I'm submitting choice. Oh, and protection for Mesa." I'm doing Mina's tomorrow, but I'm thinking laughter." Denki frowned. Why so many councils and assemblies lately? Assigning a minor god to each major god, choosing a 3rd responsibility for each of us, whatever we do this meeting? Izuku started muttering. They caught the words world building, writer doing setup, before Katsuki smacked him on the back of the head. "You're not the god of 4th wall breaking, so shut up!" Shoto frowned. "It's because we're very new to ruling the pantheon. It's only been a little while since Toshinori lost the throne, and then we had that skirmish, and now we're setting up our own systems and rules, different from, and superior to, the past." "And last of all, Kyoka, what 3rd domain are you taking on as a responsibility?" Kyoka didn't bother to look up at the council, studying her nails as she replied, "I will be the goddess of..." Everyone waited, holding their breath. The tension coiled tighter as the moment dragged on. It was only 30 seconds, but it felt suffocating. And then, "Fertility," she announced, flashing her eyes up at her friends with a proud smile. The other goddesses understood a split second before the gods, and in an instant Kyoka was surrounded by nearly the entire council, laughing and congratulating her on her pregnancy. Katsuki glared at Denki. "So when's the brat due?" Denki grinned back at what he knew was meant to be affection. "Beginning of spring." "Guess I beat you then. Mine's due late winter." Katsuki smirked as the attention suddenly shifted to him, everyone crowding around to ask after his wife. "Leah, where are you going? Come back! Leah!" Leah ran off, ignoring her best friend's agitation and concern. At least she was fast enough to outpace her. She should have won. Why hadn't she won? She practiced for weeks to win the village race, and still she'd lost to that stupid brat Ro. She scowled, kicked a rock, stubbed her toe, sat down, and started to cry. All her efforts amounted to nothing. It wasn't enough that her twin sister had been chosen as heir to the throne, made crown princess, and shipped off to royal tutoring. No, it wasn't enough for Lai to be everything. Leah still had to be nothing. Suddenly, a pillar of green light began to descend, and a soft voice surrounded her. "Don't worry, Princess Leah. Orange light abruptly crashed through the green, scattering it and dispelling the voice. A figure appeared with a wild-edged grin, fire snapping and popping in his aura. "As god of victory, I should really be visiting your sister, or the girl who won the race. I don't do underdogs, that's more Deku's realm of expertise. But I've gotten a lot of prayers lately asking me to help you out, and I couldn't let Deku screw this up." You're Katsuki, second ruler of the gods. What are you doing here?" "Your listening skills need work. I'm not repeating myself. Now follow me. I'll teach you how to make those bastards die."
Hi everyone, Cricket here to record judge comments for week 32. This was for my Write Me a Pantheon prompt, and it may be the only Scorch that Lost is still mad about. just went back and reread both of the pieces that I got from Lost and Peixe. They both did such a good job. And if I were picking today, maybe I would have made a different choice. Maybe not, though. It's really hard to say. I really, truly loved Peixi's piece. She put so much work into all of the different gods and all of their godly domains, and it was like so fun to read. And obviously, as we can tell from the piece I won with last week, I was in a My Hero Academia type mood, so like it was really fun to consider these characters that I was really into in this fun new way. And I liked like the godly hierarchies and how everything had been set up. I thought it was so cool. So yeah, I think Peixe just really got this one for the world building, and if you feel like it, would highly recommend checking out Lost's Ember on our Patreon also. It is so good. She also wrote it to attack me specifically, but it's delightful and so funny. I'll pass it back over to Peixe now. I can't wait to hear what she has to say about this one.
Alright, so that was my Scorch. Obviously, there were a bunch of different pieces in there that are somewhat disjointed and disconnected. But, I don't know, I guess Cricket liked it. I had fun with it too. I'm not really that big of a fan of My Hero Academia. I do like Katsuki, which I feel like was obvious in this fic. But, yeah, mostly Bakugo and Todoroki are the characters that I care about in that show. But I had fun writing it. Pantheons are always fun, so I liked the prompts. And, you know, it's just fun to think about different aspects of different characters. So I enjoyed myself. I hope you all enjoyed listening to it. Let me tell you what I prompted for the next week. See, people who are smart pull this up beforehand. I am always struggling along behind the curve. Okay. I prompted for number 33. Wait. Yes, for number 33, I prompted a fight to the death on a hospital roof. Wow, that is incredibly dramatic. I think I remember reading a story where somebody had fought to the death on a hospital roof, and that is what prompted that. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, so that'll be an exciting thing to tune into when that comes out. All right. Keep those fires burning, y'all.
The Cellblock Scorch is a production of StellaCore, an independent group of nerds sharing their obsessions with the world. We can be reached at thestellacore@gmail.com, through comments on your podcast platform of choice, our Instagram, Stella_core, and at our YouTube, also called StellaCore. Feel free to check out our other productions on our YouTube channel or our cosplays on Instagram. If you would like to support our creative endeavors, you can give a one-time tip to the Ko-Fi of the writer of your favorite Scorches, or check out our Patreon, linked in the show notes. There, you can access the winning Scorches and episode transcripts for free, or sign up for Spark level support for $5 a month to gain access to all of the Scorch submissions.